Hey, what's going on, everyone? So we're here yet again on Spoken Word with Jeremiah, but the purpose of this video is really just so that everyone can see this interview that was done between Satan and Ivan the evangelist. I was told that it was really good because it gave a lot of factual and biblical information, so I wanted to watch it with you for the first time. I want to let it play through, but if they say something that is really good, I may have to pause it really quickly and speak on it, but I'll try not to, okay? All right, so now that I've said all of that, let's jump into the video.
Whoa, Lucifer in the flesh. Do you know how many journalists would kill? Wait, you probably do. First, I want to say thank you to agreeing to this interview, because I know you are a very, very busy person.
Yes. I usually like to fly under the radar. But I figured, since I'm already on the campaign trail, why not?
Okay. First, let's talk about your reign. Now, you've had a fairly long one. What would you attribute to your success and popularity?
Oh, that's easy. Every generation is the same. I appeal to their lust and ego. I offer all the sex, wealth, and fame a person could want. Do as thou wilt has been my campaign slogan from the start. And my campaign platform hasn't changed either. I run on the same three issues every generation. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and pride of life.
Okay.
So really quick, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that "do what thou wilt" that's on his shirt, that's Aleister Crowley. That's black magic. That's demonic stuff. That's the same thing that Jay-Z and them follow. That's their slogan, "do what thou wilt," meaning you can do whatever you want that your flesh or anything desires because you only live once. So you might as well live however you want. That's their slogan, "do what thou wilt."
Okay. When you say lust of the flesh, what exactly do you mean?
Come on now. What do I mean? Isn't it obvious? I just use humans' own innate physical desires against them. And since sexual desire seems to be the most powerful, I usually run with that. Now, I didn't create sex, but I must say I've done a superb job at perverting it. Take pornography, for example. Well, you should know a lot about this one, Ivan. Weren't you addicted to porn?
This interview is about you, not about me. Can we get back on subject?
Now, where was I? Oh, yeah. What I do is gradually get someone addicted to porn. And once lust has had its full work and he and she can no longer restrain themselves, they usually look to act out their fantasies on someone. And sometimes that someone is a child. Now, if my plan plays out perfectly, that abused child will eventually turn to a life of promiscuity and perversion themselves, allowing me to continue my vicious cycle. And here's the kicker. Many of those abused girls end up right in the porn industry. Now, how's that for irony?
Real quick, I'm sorry. I don't know if everyone realizes just how true that is. So many of the decisions that we make today as adults are a direct result of what we've experienced as kids. So many of the people who are overly sexual are that way due to what they have seen or what has been done to them, such as porn, molestation, or being raped. And it's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing for a kid to have to deal with. And that's why getting some form of counseling is so important. There is nothing wrong with getting help from someone who can help you overcome what you have experienced, because the past directly affects the decisions that we make today. I've seen so many people who have shut down socially because they don't trust people. I've watched others who have developed a strong appetite for sex to where they don't see the value in waiting for marriage or even being married. Others who have began to develop feelings for the same sex because trauma affects everyone differently. But that's what Satan is counting on. He's counting on your pain being what keeps you from having a real relationship with God. He's a deceiver. Now, I'm about to say something, and I'm sorry if it offends you, But a major way that Satan is deceiving people is where you have a lot of women that avoid dating men because they see them as a constant reminder of the trauma that they have experienced. But I want you to think about something. Many of the same women who say I don't want a man are in a relationship with a woman who dresses, acts, and even looks like a man. And the men are in a relationship with a man that acts like a woman. And because someone may need to hear it this way, they are even having sex the same way that a man and a woman does. And this is called confusion. The enemy is using your trauma to convince you that what is wrong in the eyes of God is actually right. Confusion is birthed from trauma of our past that we never dealt with. And I encourage you to deal with it so that you can see him and his ways clearly. Maybe one day I'll share with you my own testimony of what I've experienced in the future, but what Satan just said in this interview is beyond true.
The second thing you had mentioned, I believe, you said lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes. Can you elaborate?
Humans are never satisfied. You always crave more. Bigger house, bigger car, more money, more power. The list goes on and on. I just take their natural ambitious desire, pervert it, and use it against them for their own destruction. My plan is to allow them to never be content. As long as I can keep them craving what others have, I can depend on them to argue, fight, even kill to get it. Humans are so easily tricked into jealousy. And you know what they say? Jealousy is as cruel as the grave.
Yes, I have heard that before. The last thing you had mentioned was, I believe, pride of life. Now, how does this fit into your campaign platform?
Humans are always on a quest for knowledge. I trick the first humans to seek carnal knowledge over godly wisdom, and it's worked like a charm every generation since. With more knowledge comes more pride, and you know pride is my specialty. And since humans don't like to keep God in their wisdom, I'm able to seduce them with all types of things to help puff up their ego. Lately, fame has been my biggest seller. Who doesn't like attention and feeling more important than the next person? And once I make them famous, I can really use them to promote my agenda. With their help, I've convinced half of the world to not only accept sin, but to celebrate it. Do you know what has been my most enjoyable pride campaign to date?
No, what?
Well, my gay pride campaign, of course. Not only do I get the chance to promote your own self-destruction, I get to use God's logo, the rainbow, to do it. Love is love, right? My plan not only prevents you worthless humans from reproducing, it distorts the gender roles and allows me to bring all types of chaos and confusion upon your pathetic societies. It's been so successful, I've got men convinced they're women, and women convinced they're men, and some convinced they're no gender at all. And I've got 2 more Pride Initiative campaigns I'd like to introduce in the near future.
Really? I'm guessing you probably want me to ask you what they are, right?
Well, first, it's abortion pride. Now, I think we can pull this off. Society is definitely ready for it. I've enlisted to help a Planned Parenthood to work with marketing and promotions. And all we'll have to do is silence the so-called abolitionists and pro-lifers, because the rest of the church doesn't seem to care. And second is pedophilia pride. Now, society might not be ready for this one just yet, so we'll hold off. I need to desensitize them a little more before we introduce it.
Okay. Let's change gears for a minute.
Whew. This is so real. It's like I like to say, it's a domino effect. When you open the door for one thing, you give up the control because you can't stop everything that wants to come through. When the laws changed and made it so that same-sex marriage is now legal, it opened the door for adult sex changes to follow. And now kids can change their sex as young as 14. And watch, soon you will have men saying, you know what? I don't want to be with an adult. I want to be with a 7 or 8-year-old. Because when I look in the mirror, I don't see a grown man. I see myself as a child. So that's why I desire to be with a child. And just in case you didn't know it, states are already changing the laws to make that legal. And if that wasn't bad enough, we literally have people who are born men beating up women with no consequence because they identify as a woman. They have made it okay for a man to be fighting a woman as long as he claims to be a woman. And I'm sorry, but the church isn't helping. The church always has something to say in private, but they refuse to say anything in public. I guess they don't want to be persecuted or possibly lose their tax-free money. But even though they may have fear, it's that fear that is keeping the door open. The church can't continue to remain silent on these important topics. Somebody has to stand up. Who is speaking out for those who are lost? If the church won't do it, who are you expecting to do it?
A policy. Some may consider your policies destructive, dangerous even. What would be your response to that? What would you say to your detractors?
All of my policies are aimed to do one of three things: either steal, kill, or destroy. And if it's not doing one or all three of those things, then it's not in my agenda, and I'm not promoting it.
Okay. I'm happy you said that. It seems as if you promote your agenda differently to different ethnicities. If so, why?
Of course, I'd be a fool not to. Take black people, for instance. As a people, they're super spiritual, so I can't really convince them that there is no God. What I have been able to do as of late is convince them that he's not the God of the Bible. Now, I've been real successful at promoting black consciousness and Islam in their communities.
I'm so happy you mentioned black people. It seems as if we've been at the very top of your agenda for quite some time. Why is that?
A few reasons. Black people help me reach the masses. Now, as you know, I was over music in heaven. My beats were so dope, I got over a third of the angels to follow me. And once I got here to the earth, I needed artists and entertainers to help me promote my message here. Who better than black people? Black people possess all the natural rhythm and music ability that I need. And it's easy for me to influence them with money since so many of them grew up without it. Another reason I target black people is because they're strong mentally and physically. If black men were to ever find their identity in Christ, I'd be in trouble. So I try my best to destroy the black family structure and keep black men away from his family and the church. Drugs and incarceration are a couple of my more popular means.
I don't know if that hit you the way that it hit me. Gosh, Jesus. Listen. God has established a order or a headship. And it says in Corinthians, I believe, that the head of the woman is the man, and that the head of man is Christ, and that the head of Christ is God. Man didn't establish that order, and please hear me when I tell you that. God established that order, not man. But when we decide to change the order of that headship, we throw everything into chaos. We create chaos. Because if the woman can now become the head of the man, and again, remember who established it, then we are saying that Christ can also become the head of God. And we're also saying that the children have the ability to become the heads of the parents. Because if we change the order in one place, then we can't say that if we can change the order of a woman being the head of her husband, then we also have to be able to say that the other ones can change as well. They're all together. We can't separate them. If you change the order in one, you change the order in all of them. And this is why it is so important for us to just uphold the standard that God has already set. Why do we constantly feel the need to erase God? Why do we act like we know better than him? We may not always understand the why, But we can read. We can read. And if he said that the headship order is the children, then the wife, then the husband, then Christ, and then God, and that's the umbrella, then why are we changing it? If he is perfect and he makes no mistakes, and he knows all things, meaning he knows things that we don't even see, which is why he is establishing the order this way, why don't we just trust him? Why are we as his people disagreeing with what he has established? I don't get it. All right.
Without the head of the household present, I can become the head and influence the children without too much resistance.
So you mean to tell me that your policies are intentionally racist against black people?
Racist? This has got to be the best law I've ever come up with. Now, I can't believe that humans still believe they're different races. But to answer your question, yes. It has always been my policy to target and isolate a group of people. And out of all my strategies, this skin color thing has worked the best. I definitely want to keep white people and black people separated. As long as I can keep black people bitter and white people offended, I'm good. Hopefully black people will never forgive. That way I can continue to use them.
Okay, my question is, what role, if any, does your administration play in this black on black crime epidemic?
Well, as great as my administration is, we can't take all the credit for this. Black people help us tremendously. By aborting so many of their babies, they allow us to bring death to their communities. As the Bible says, they sow the wind and reap a whirlwind.
When implementing all of these policies, do you ever face any resistance or pushback? And if so, from who?
One group in particular try to oppose every policy I try to implement. I would be so much further along in my agenda if it wasn't for them.
Really? So what group is that?
Those pesky, born-again Jesus followers. They're a real thorn in my side. Every generation, they come together and try to dismantle one of my signature policies. Now, I've convinced half of the world that Jesus didn't exist and the other half that he wasn't divine. But I can't seem to convince them. They seem hell-bent on telling everybody about him and spreading his message. And some of them believe he's coming to unseat me in this generation. Crazy, huh? I'll tell you, those idiots are really messing with my legacy.
So, Lucifer, how does that make you feel when us idiots say that Jesus possibly could be coming back in this generation to unseat you?
Y'all been saying that for centuries. I just use it as motivation to get as much of my agenda pushed through and deceive as many people as possible before he returns. I think I've done pretty well. My record speaks for itself. About 150,000 people die each day, and most of them don't know Jesus.
150,000 people. Whew. Well, you know what? This concludes our interview. I want to say thank you for an open, honest, pretty frank discussion with me. Is there any last words you would like to leave with our viewing audience?
Yes. I'd like to take this moment and give a special thank you to two groups of people. First, I want to say thank you to all my followers. You are the hands and feet of my administration, and we could do nothing without you. Keep up the good work, spread my message. And second, I'd like to say thank you to the divided church. I love the way you argue and use your passions to fight amongst each other. Keep up the good work. There's really no rush to tell people about Jesus. You all have plenty of time.
Whoa.
I mean, hey, listen, that's my first time watching it, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I feel like there's so much truth in it. I really do. I feel like there's so much truth, and I know that there's still going to be some who are going to see Satan as still fake, and they're going to see God as not real. or there's going to be some who are going to believe that it's not really that serious. It doesn't really matter how we live because a loving God wouldn't really send us to hell. A loving God wouldn't really allow us to go to hell. And it's the scary part, because if anyone is a parent, you know that as a parent you establish rules for your house as to what is allowed and what isn't. And when you have a child that lives under your roof and they don't follow your rules, do you just allow them to do whatever they want? Or do you discipline them? Do you say, listen, if you're not going to abide by my rules, especially if they're of age, then you can't stay here? Or are we going to be those kind of loving parents that, hey, it's okay if you're smoking and drinking and doing everything else you want. You can still be here. It's okay if you want to bring your boyfriend or your girlfriend here and have sex in my house. It's okay. You know, I understand that we have rules, but if you don't follow it, I still love you. Are we going to be those type of parents and just allow anything, sin to engulf the house? Or are we going to make a decision that, despite how much I love you, I will not allow you to continue to disrespect this house and do what you want to do? Did that child who decided to not follow the rules, did they get put out because the parent didn't love them? Or did they make the choice and the decision to put themselves out? Heaven and hell is the same thing. God has already established rules for us. He has already established a way for us to meet Him. Will we follow His rules, or will we force Him to allow us to go to a place that wasn't even created for us? If hell was created for Satan and the angels who followed him, are we really going to make the choice? Because it's your choice. It's my choice. Are we going to make that decision to allow ourselves to go to a place that He does not desire for us to go? Because we know no parent desires for their child to go and to be punished or to have to be put outside of the house. No parent wants that. But just because you love that child doesn't mean you can't uphold the standard. When that child is ready to come back home, if they wake up and they don't lose their life before coming back, then what will most parents who are loving parents do? They will do just like the prodigal son. Father did when he allowed him to come back. He didn't throw all of his sins in his face. He embraced them with open arms. Had his servants put a robe over him, put the ring on him, made a feast. He celebrated the fact that his son had returned. God is going to do the same thing for us. If you have not accepted Christ and you're out on the outside of what He wants, and you're taking advantage of the mercy which He has given, salvation is always going to be yours. The opportunity is always yours. As long as you have breath in your body and you are able to breathe, then guess what that means? You are able to accept Christ. That means that you have been given mercy and shown by being given time to change. He has already given you time to change. When are you going to decide that I'm going to believe, like this video, that there is an agenda going on, that Satan is trying to destroy me? When are you going to believe? Because if you never believe, whether you like it or you believe it or not, God is a loving God, but He doesn't love any of us so much to ignore what His word says. Because if He allows you to make it in after living a sinful lifestyle, then that means you have made God a liar. Because if He says that all liars, fornicators, adulterers, idolaters, greedy, lustful, all these different people will not inherit the kingdom of heaven, if He lets us in knowing that we live those lifestyles, then God would be a lie. And God is not a lie. No different from you Uzziah. When God made establish that you shall not touch of the ark, and if you put your hand on the ark, you shall die. God did not make that rule or that command knowing that the day would not come that Uzzah was going to touch the ark. God made that command knowing Uzzah was going to make that, touch the ark. Because His commands aren't based on He doesn't make His commands based on the possibility of someone sinning. He expects us to simply obey what He said. When Uzzah tried to reach his hand out and stop the cart from falling, Uzzah was literally saying that God is not capable of keeping himself. When we change the standards of God, we are saying that God, you can't save people without lowering your standards. We are telling God that he is incapable of doing what the scriptures have already told us he is more than capable of doing. He said, whosoever will, let him come. That means that if they decide in the churches not to come to God, it's not our job to change what God says to help them to come. It's their job to make the decision to see the value in accepting Christ and choosing him. That's why we don't let down on the standard. That's why we don't change what God has established. Because it's a whosoever will. Our job is simply to tell them what the standard is. And they have the choice as to whether or not they're going to follow it. Hey, I enjoyed this video. I got to look for more. I like this. I don't tell me if you like it in a comment, if you like this, back and forth. But Satan is real and God is real. Choose you this day whom you will serve. Salvation is always available for you. My name is Jeremiah. This is Spoken Word, and I will see you next time. All right? Be safe.